Okay, just to make a quick, brief introduction so
Yeah.
that people know who we're talking to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. You're the current mining and energy manager at
Correct.
RMB,
Correct.
right? And you have experience as a analyst,
Correct. Investment banking. Correct.
in investment banking,
Correct.
right? And I'd like to say, I think I've been speaking with a friend a while ago, and she's like a psychologist.
Okay.
So she says every time, I think we were talking about because we were reading the newspaper and seeing why people do certain things, usually the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, why people you would see someone did something bad, and then you would usually think why human beings can do stuff like that. You know, but then she mentioned something where she said everything sort of starts with childhood.
Okay.
You know, and I was thinking like it's just not for that side of things. It's also for even the good stuff we do. You know, most of what we do. If you trace back someone's life, you would see that at a certain point, at an earlier point, the earlier you start, sort of like the sooner you would see the benefits of whatever you were doing. So for you, when is your earliest memory of sort of like the passion that you have currently right now?
My earliest, that's a very good question. Yeah, especially the build up to it. My earliest memory of when this all started, I would say was auditioning for Friends' special at NBC. I was, 12 years old at the time.
Okay.
And now, you're auditioning with at least 100 and something other contestants, and then having landed that opportunity, I think we were 4 or 5 presenters that were chosen out of the batch. I think that's where it all started.
Right.
That's where the passion started. I mean, obviously it was a kiddie show, so all you were really doing is presenting, Teletubbies is up next or whatever it is. But with that, we integrated talk shows to talk about social ills that affect young Namibians that we could see, and just shared ideas about how, as young people at the time, we could grow together and face these circumstances. So I would say that would be my earliest childhood sort of memory. I don't know if does 12 count as a
12
as a child?
12 is very early though.
Okay, all right.
Super early.
Yeah.
So by 12, you felt comfortable being in front of people? Was that
really in front of cameras, right?
In front of cameras,
because you're in studio and there's 7, 8 cameras. And the director, I remember, that's my first strict boss in my life, because she didn't care we were 12 years old. She would make you take as many retakes as it was, as she wanted you to achieve the perfect result. And there were lots of lessons in that already at 12 to have had that experience with such an experienced producer at that stage. So
Sure. I think so. At 12, if I can remember, you would mostly be watching movies and stuff like that. And let me say influence, and you would see that role models as a kid. Whenever you see kids watching a movie, let's say it's like an action film or whatever, as soon as they're done watching it, they go outside and try to imitate whatever they were watching. Like if it's guns, they'll start playing guns. If it's Spider-Man, they'll try jumping on the walls and stuff. But as a kid, who was your role model in that time?
I would say my dad. He had a work ethic that was, and continues to have a work ethic that is second to none, and that for me, just seeing him do what he loved and be great at it, sort of rubbed off me at a very early stage. Every work prize giving ceremony he attended, he came home with 6 diplomas, top of his department and everything, and I grew up wanting to be like that as well, in whatever it is that I would end up doing with my life. So I would say at that stage, definitely my dad. It wasn't a movie character or political figure. I was fortunate to have had a role model right there at home. No,
that's good. Were you the only child?
Sorry?
Were you the only child?
I was the only child for 8 years. And then when I was 8, my brothers were born. the triplets. So we're 4 boys.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. So I was the only child for a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was your school upbringing like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Van Rijn Primary School, which was obviously a government school. And when I went to grade 8, I went to Winter Gymnasium, and it was a completely different environment as it was a private school. Whereas, in government, you're 40, 45 in a classroom.
Yeah.
There wasn't really an aura of wanting to be great or do great. We just were doing what we were meant to be doing, which is going to school.
Yeah.
And gymnasium, and I'm guessing it's because, these are, people with much more, I guess, privileged opportunity to be attending gymnasium. They're coming from households where there was a desire to do things that were beyond the bare minimum. And it was a complete different culture, whether it was the sports, it was super competitive, academically. I remember I was comfortable going into high school, I was comfortable getting C's. I felt all I needed to do was pass.
Yeah.
But I quickly became surrounded by people who wanted to only, get the A's. And that pushed me. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be the dumb one in the classroom.
Exactly.
So next thing I know, I'm also achieving, A's. And that's when I realized that sometimes your surroundings play a very vital role in bringing out the best in you, or sometimes the worst in you, depending on what the surrounding is. So I think that was the biggest lesson for me, or rather blessing that private schooling offered me at the time. And that's I did grade 8 to 12 at gymnasium. I think I only did 2 months of my grade 12, and then I got a scholarship to move to New Mexico in the United States to attend the United World College. I spent 2 years there doing my international baccalaureate diploma, and then went to University of Rochester, where I did my undergraduate, which is in upstate New York. There I did a major in international relations and then minored in business. So yeah, that sort of summarizes my schooling career up until this point.
I wanna touch a bit on your schooling, because in high school you'd find people that are mostly just into the books, so they just put their whole entire focus in just studying and everything, and then also like social relationships, they don't pay as much attention to that. How would you say, balancing, being social? Because I think most of the stuff, if I can remember, I think it was in high school where our high school and your high school, so the Model UN, MUN.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the first time where I met you, actually. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah. So there was I think, we were placed in pairs, right?
Yeah.
So my partner was one of your friends. I think on the first day he wasn't there.
Okay.
And then you were like, no, I know the guy. It's my friend. He's going to show up tomorrow. So I just can't remember what his name is.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think stuff like that, putting yourself out in certain fields, if it's sports, you engage in sports, anything that has social impact. How do you think?
100%. I totally agree with you in that you will not tap into your full potential, or you won't discover it unless you explore other, platforms. So if you're just stuck on, studying in school, you wouldn't know that you're a great debater unless you try Model UN or join the debating club, etc. So there's just some skills or potential passions I think can be hidden in you if you don't try and tap into that potential. So it's very important, or it was at least very important for me, to explore all these activities, extracurricular activities. Whether it was Model UN, rugby. I made some very good friends in rugby as well. And as you say, Model UN for me was a good opportunity to sort of emulate world leaders and be in their shoes. And even if you were pretending to do it for 3 days, it still felt good. It felt like you were doing something for the world.
Exactly.
And all of these other stuff, right? So I agree with you. I think it's very important to be a bit extroverted in your younger years, as then you will quickly come to identify passions that you might then choose to follow. I mean, I went on to study international relations, right? We could argue that, having done Model UN in grade 9, played a role in influencing that decision.
Yeah.
So.
So after school, what was your first thing that you went to college for?
So it was international relations.
International relations.
Yeah. I've not done my master's yet. I want to do that next year. So it was international relations with the money and business. Why I chose IR was because whilst in high school, I developed, a liking for youth affairs, youth politics, which was motivated by me joining, the National Youth Council as the youth ambassador at the time. Retosa as the regional tourism organization of Southern Africa junior minister at the time. So whilst doing that, I loved the impact, as junior as my roles were, and the impact they had on society, for me, was satisfying and fulfilling. And I felt, okay, so something's telling me I should follow a path of, of politics. But then when I went to the US, I discovered that their political degree was mainly specialized in US American politics, and I didn't want to do that. So I chose the international relations route, which was the same department. It's just that with IR, it was a more broader view of world politics as opposed to just American politics. So that's why I ended up choosing international relations. Yeah, and then minoring in business as well, because I just felt, why not? It's good to sort of diversify your skill set. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you move into investment banking after doing that?
So whilst in uni, I then did an internship in private equity here in Namibia at EOS Capital. That was, I think, between my second and third year. And the reason why it was an internship in private equity is I was struggling to get an internship at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I wasn't getting any answers, and I'm guessing there was just no structure to accommodate internship programs at the time, at least. I don't know if that's still the case today. So it never worked out to get into MIRCO, Ministry of International Relations. But then I tapped into my network and ended up learning of EOS Capital, it's private equity, did a bit more research on what private equity was, and I reached out to them, they responded, we had an interview, and I did my internship with them for 3 months, my first finance internship. And that was the beginning of my love for the sector. Just the beauty of being able to use private capital to turn ideas into reality, from infancy to, years a whole 200-bed hospital. For being part of that ideation and execution team, seeing that for me was just satisfying. To some extent more fulfilling. So I suppose I quickly discovered that whatever thing I did that gave me or made me feel like I had a lot of impact, that's what fulfilled me the most, if that kind of makes sense. And for me, private equity did that. So went back to uni. So between my third and fourth year, that summer break, I then interned in investment banking this time around at Jefferies in London. And they then gave me a return offer for a full-time role post-graduation. So then, that was sort of how I got into investment banking. Did that for 2 years, 2.5 in London, and decided to move back home. And now with Brand Merchant Bank, but no longer investment banking analyst, more of a coverage banker in that sense.
Yeah. If you were to summarize investment banking, because obviously for someone like me, you hear of investment, but it's hard to sort of wrap your head around it. What would you say? How would you describe it to me?
Investment banking is really an advisory service between sellers of assets and buyers of assets, right? Let me put that into more layman terms by using an example. So let's say, you are a solar farm developer. but that's all you do. You buy land, you've got the skills and the specialties to develop a 5 megawatt solar farm, but you don't really want to manage and maintain this farm. You just want to develop it. You can then come to investment bankers and say, hey guys, do you know of anyone in the market who wants to buy up renewable energy assets? And I could either have a database already, or I know pension funds or private equity funds who are in the space looking for renewable energy assets. So my job is to then be that intermediary between you that's selling your asset and the potential buyer, and then seeing to it, and this would be a transaction, seeing to it that that deal concludes. I value the asset. We make you an offer. We look at other synergies of maybe nearby assets that you could consider with the same deal, blah, blah, blah. So it's really playing that advisory role and making sure that our clients optimize their investments, and our, the sell side clients are getting buyers for their assets. So yeah, in a nutshell, so mergers and acquisitions is the more technical term to it. But in a nutshell, sorry, that's what investment banking is.
Okay. Yeah. Would you say it touches a bit on also like the individual investing their money into long-term investments?
Not really. No, it's primarily corporate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Individuals would fall more into wealth management, private wealth, securities investments, etc. Of which some investment banks do offer those specialties as well. But from an M&A perspective, which was what I was doing, we predominantly advising corporates.
Yeah. So it looks like your true passion is mostly in public relations, dealing with people and stuff like that. So politics wouldn't be sort of like a far avenue for you to navigate in. I find it a little bit hard for the youth these days to be interested in politics like that. Because most of the stuff we're interested in is technology and the changing stuff that we keep seeing over and over. But I think if it's because especially if the youth, the way the world is sort of moving towards, it needs people that understand how the current structure is as compared to the past structure. And say like for schools, for instance, I see if you keep going back to schools, the stuff they teach, it is useful, I would say, but it's not, as soon as you leave school, right, it's sort of like a whole different reality to what you were painted. Would you say in the future, obviously with your trajectory, would politics be something that you would be interested in?
Yeah, I get this question often. And it's one that's always tricky for me to answer, because I'm in a space in my life now where, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm doing something where I see the impact of my work, and to some extent, impacting lives. An example, if we grant a mine, a few $100 million in loans to keep going because maybe the commodity they're selling or mining is down, etc., and that means they're able to keep 400, 500, 700 people employed for a period of time. That impact right there is what fulfills me, and that's what satisfies me in my current role and sphere of finance and banking. Can I achieve the same in the political sphere? Yes. Is it more complicated to do because of bureaucracy and just the processes that are there? Yes, it's more difficult to do, and it's challenging in that sense. And I'm not shying away from the challenge, but I just feel that I think when the time is right, it's not something I would necessarily shy away from. It's a challenge I'd be happy to take on, but right now, at this point in time, I am really enjoying what I do, and I enjoy being part of the wider mining and energy Namibian story. And playing a role in cultivating what that space should look like for Namibia. Even if I'm doing it from a financier perspective, I still feel like there's some level of influence that I'm able to leverage and offer. So yeah, so it's a difficult question. Yes, when the opportunity comes down the road, perhaps. But right now, I think I'm making a difference in my little corner, and I'm happy doing so for now.
Now, the reason why I ask is because I keep noticing whenever you always people keep chasing after things, you know. When you chase after something, you reach it. You obviously want a bigger thing, you know, bigger thing. You want to, like you said, impact people. So the biggest impact, if we could sort of like see your trajectory, would be politics. I think that's why.
I agree.
You know, so it makes sense that way.
But you would need the right structure, right team, the right instruments for you to really get the most out of that impact. I'm unaware now. Maybe it is there, but I would, if I go into that space, those are sort of the tools I would need to have some reassurance in that are in place, because I don't want to be in a space where I feel I'm not really achieving full impact and influence because the systems just don't allow me to. Whereas now I feel like I've got the right systems that allow me to impact my sector and field of specialty. But we'll see. I mean, I always say God will direct and dictate. But if anything, to be honest with you, up until this point, nothing about my life was my own making, right? I felt like I'm really just a vessel that he's been using and steering in the direction he feels I'm most needed at the time. So I leave it to his hands to then continue directing. And if that does happen and I end up in that space, then I will give my best the way I do in everything else I participate in. So
yeah. No, that's true. I like what you said at the end there, because I think it's hard sometimes to see, like, people wonder how much of the work I do is me alone doing it. You know, some people would say just pray. Some people would say no, just work. You know, because everything depends on you, so to speak. But I think I reach sort of a place where I understand that you should sort of work as much as you can, you know, to gain the skills, but you should pray to so when the opportunity comes, you know, you're ready for those things. And I think the opportunity, it's him that gives it to you.
100%.
You know? But you can't just sit down and not work for the skills you know, that you should have.
I think, you know, every circumstance you find yourself in is really a preparation for your next, for the next door that's going to open. And we don't know, I don't know what that is for me yet, but I, as you say, continue to work hard and do good work in what I'm doing at the moment, and we'll see. We'll see where that path leads to.
The mining and energy, maybe it's not a new, it's obviously not a new sector, but it's receiving a lot of buzz these days. You know, how would you say, how could that impact the unemployment rate?
I think substantially, right? You know, if we just focus now on the newer sectors, especially in the energy space, be it the more imminent one we are seeing now is oil and gas. We're coming to learn that there's very special or sort of specialized skill sets that you need to work on an offshore rig or supply vessel, etc. So we will see for a while, most of those jobs will remain sort of reserved for the expats because they already have these skills coming from oil and gas producing countries. So it's easier for Shell or Total to fly in someone from Trinidad and Tobago or from Nigeria, etc. There's quite a number of Nigerians who work for these companies because they've had, you know, oil and gas since the 60s, if not early 70s. So as for Namibia, it's going to be a process. That's the local content, or the focus on developing our local content policy. First, I would say that the indirect impact on our existing sectors will see a drive in revenue, and as such, it will translate into growth. which opens up jobs for more people, whether it's retail, hospitality, logistics, warehousing, and so forth. So there would be definitely an indirect impact on these sectors, given this massive oil and gas finds that we have. And in that space, we'll see jobs and more jobs for people. But directly in the oil and gas space, initially, we will see very junior opportunities for people with skill sets or vocational skill sets, and with time, as they grow with those companies, they will then elevate to more specialized job opportunities. So yes, the answer to your question is unemployment. The unemployment question will be solved because of this of the sector, directly by employment for junior roles, and then they would be upskilled into more specialized roles. But indirectly, in that, given the magnitude of the sector, there's undeniably going to be a trickle-down effect to all other existing economic powerhouses, whether it's agriculture, like I said, retail, hospitality, etc., etc. So we will see it. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be gradual, but the impact is coming, and there's no denying that.
Yeah. So if you're in high school or in university right now and you want to place yourself in sort of like the best area for you to fit in there, what sectors would you say once you?
I would say your petroleum engineering, chemical engineering type of roles. That will give you the upper hand into getting directly into specialized jobs. But then your vocational skill sets, you'll be surprised, your welding and so forth, because there's a lot of this type of work needed on the offshore rigs. But obviously, like, as mentioned, you would need to get certain type of certifications on top of your general skill set already to have an opportunity to be consumed into the sector directly. So I would say, if you're in school, aviation as well is another one where we're seeing quite a number of pilots needed for the transport on and off the offshore rigs. It's that's primarily the three or four that come to my mind if you're in school right now thinking of what to study.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how it would affect all the other industries, like you said, because even if you're in technology, there's probably a lot of technology stuff that needs to be
100%
in there. But if you want to specialize into something specifically, engineering would probably be the best place to be.
And as mentioned, primarily petroleum engineering and chemical engineering. Those are, I think, the two most prominent ones in the oil and gas space.
Your experience as a manager, how would you say that has impacted you in general?
It has definitely opened up an avenue of growth, just given the amount of responsibility that befalls on me. I mean, Renmission Bank is a big bank, right? We are Africa's biggest bank by market capitalization. I believe about 350 billion rands in market cap. So it's a massive bank, and being at the helm of the mining and energy sector for the bank in Namibia at this point in time, where it is, as you mentioned, a sector that is gaining lots of momentum and world attention. It's enormous responsibility, and another, you asked the question, I've never actually thought about it, but I've embraced it, and I take it day by day, and it helps that I love what I'm doing, so it never really feels like I'm working, and I love the culture at the bank. I love the story and the vision the bank has, and I really, it's a story I want to be part of, and it's one I'm proud of, right? Being a manager, the title itself hasn't necessarily, influenced me in any way or sense, but it's more the work and the people that I'm working with, the opportunities that I'm exposed to, the platforms that I attend as a result of the job, All of that has enormously grown me as a person and as a professional in the last year. So yeah.
I mean, if you're excelling in certain spaces, it's easier for you to sort of be fully invested in the work that you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can take work home, and there's a lot of people that say the work-life balance is not something that's real, because if you truly love the work that you do, you can't really differentiate it from the life that you have, because it spills over in everything else.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't reach a point where it feels like it's too much, and you need to realize that you also have not a life, I guess, aside from just work. How do you balance work and not work stuff?
I think that really depends on the individual. I've always been one who is very careful with that, with taking work home and taking time away from my sons. So I tend to be very careful. When I'm at work, I put in my, if it means I'm at the office at 6:45 in the morning, and I leave at 5:30, then I've paid my dues. I've done enough. So in the work-life balance at the bank is respected. The culture allows for you and respects your private and personal time. So it's very rare that you'd be expected to go or take time from your personal life and give that to the institution. So that helps a lot. Because I was with my previous employer, was one way I would say those boundaries were not respected, and as you say, it can take a toll on you as a person, because you pretty much have your soul sold to this corporate firm, and that wasn't healthy. But that I wouldn't say that about RMB. It's the complete opposite. So yeah, I tend to respect family time, and I do invest in spending time with quality time with my family. So it really depends on the individual. There are those who, like you say, love their job so much to the point where even if it's not expected of them, they still feel the need to take work home and whatnot. And I don't think I'm one of those. Not unless I have to. But
yeah. With friendship, I've noticed that the way you structure your friend group, it has a huge impact in how you sort of progress in everything that you do. Right? And you would see, even if, let's say, you have a friend group of probably 2 or 3, you would see if one of you is doing something that's good, everyone sort of diverts towards trying to do what he's doing. You don't want to feel left out in some way. But sometimes it could be that you have sort of like a huge friend group, and the majority obviously is moving in this direction, but you're moving in this way, so it's making it a bit. It's just easier for you to follow them than it is for you to pull them over. How do you? What is friendship for you? How would you define friendship?
For me, friendship is a support system that allows you to be vulnerable, especially in times when life's not going too well, and you find a sense of security and comfort in that support structure. And it's also one that celebrates you, and vice versa. When whether it's small wins or big wins, right? That's what friendship is for me. I think I'm lucky in the sense that I'm more of a quality over quantity person when it comes to my friend groups. I've got not more than 5 close friends, right? I do have a wider friends that I would see once every couple of months, but I'm saying about 5 people who I truly am in touch with on a weekly basis, and I'm in tune with what's going on in their lives and vice versa. And we, I think, are all passionate at what we do, and we sort of just focus on that. One is an engineer, the other is a vet, and they're just good at what they do. And I don't think this, and I guess maybe that desire for excellence and that individual desire for excellence maybe rubs off each other unconsciously, maybe. But yeah, it's a support structure really that works well, and I'd rather have it that way than have 10, 15 people.
Not sure.
Yeah, which I think when you get to that level, it becomes more problems than really help. Or but nonetheless, you get what I mean.
True. Yeah. Sure. Do you read any books? Are you into books?
Yeah, I do. I'll be honest with you, I haven't in a long time because the nature of my job and the traveling, whereas whenever you're on the plane, you're preparing for your presentation, etc. And like I said, on weekends, I'm really trying to give time to my family. So I haven't in a while, but I do. And Vusi Thembakwayo is one of those guys that I love his work and his books. Robin Sharma. I think the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari was a book that I honestly think changed my life. Just the idea of not realizing how much power your mind has. And that book sort of allows you to unlock that. And everything in your life, whether it's what's to come, it's all controlled from here. And it's all an art or the power of manifestation and an energy that helps you attract the positives that you want to know. So that book, I think, was is best, or one of the best writings out there by an author. But just to mention a few, some of the.
I've seen a lot of times, especially because my interest is, I've noticed that in biographies, for instance, that's where I find a lot of sort of golden nuggets, because that's simply like interviewing people that have reached a certain stage, but sometimes people will look at such people and then feel sort of discouraged, or feel sort of like they've not reached that stage, maybe because they, instead of getting the little information from that person's life, they would look as if everyone needs to be where a certain person is, because success, in my view, I think it's subjective to the person, So, but the only thing is, everyone has their own avenues, but you need to look at people's lives and see like what they have done, how you could relate to you, and sort of try and define your own success and chase that,
100%. But I think I get that mostly from my mentor. Yes, you can get the same lessons by reading a few biographies, but for me, being able to identify someone who is maybe of the same ethnicity, similar upbringing, and has achieved, milestones that I'm aspiring towards, that relationship with me is more meaningful and impactful, and it's also available, right? Because I can tap into it as and when my life requires it. So, and this is someone who's obviously, like you said, has the golden nuggets because they've experienced some of the same pitfalls and they've navigated it a certain way, and they can tell you, look, when that happened to me, I did this, and I don't think that was a smarter choice. Why don't you try doing this? And that for me, it's amazing to. It allows you not to burn multiple times because other people have burned already before you.
True.
So I think it's very important to have that person in your life. I know that a lot of people say it's hard to come by one, but same. I mean, I only got one last year, right? And
how did you find it?
I sort of just looked around because I met him I think 2 years ago. And I just sort of stayed close to what he was doing and following his life story from a distance. And every now and then when I met him in a social setting, I realized the impact that interaction would leave, that I would live with, right, from that interaction. And I thought, I reached out to him and I said, look, I've really, I think that every time I've taken away a lot of meaningful lessons from our encounters. So would you mind, making it more standardized, and we've got monthly or bi-monthly catch-ups, and like I said, if there are certain emergencies where I really need advice, I reach out to him and we meet up, and yeah, so that's how I found him. Really, from just engaging him, I realized that this is really someone who can help me grow beyond, what I sort of set out to be.
And you think he was open to it, so you just sort of
He's
reached
very
out
open,
to him.
yeah. He was very, very open.
Nice.
And yeah, I guess that's important, having someone who's open, reliable, and accessible. Because if they never have the time for you, then it becomes difficult to derive the values of a mentorship from it. So yeah.
What is one question that you would want someone to ask you?
A question that I would want someone to ask me.
Yeah. I know it's strange because sometimes there's a lot of things that, people just see the you that's outside, but there's certain avenues of you that just
Yeah.
and you would be like, no, if people could have conversations with me regarding this, I would like to share.
Perhaps the question would be, what is the importance of God in your life, and why do you choose to continue having that relationship, especially in the modern world where a lot of people are moving away from the church, moving away from Christianity. So yeah, I guess that would be the question.
So if I were to ask you that,
okay, I figured. that. Man, I think, look, in my 26 years of life, there has been multiple times where things could have gone horribly wrong, but they didn't, right? And for me, that created an indebtedness to someone, and that's not really a person, but that for me is God, right? I honestly feel I owe my being alive right now to Him. I owe my health, my professional progression, my boys, my family, still being able to have my parents, and then I feel that is all credited to Him. And for me, there's no reason why that all He asks in return is that I serve Him, right? It doesn't cost me much, right? It's really, it's the one thing you derive the most rewards from really not, putting in tons of effort per se. All you should have is that relationship with Him, and honor it and respect Him for it. So, and I'm one who believes that everything happens for a reason, and I think that reason is always one that He has dictated, and that what He wants you to experience. And sometimes in the moment you never realize it, but eventually, trust me, you do. You sort of sit back, and I remember when I was making the decision to quit and move back to Namibia, I was thinking, man, this job is literally killing me. My mental health is really bottom. So, but is it smart to go back home now or whatnot? And I was questioning and doubting that overwhelming sense that was telling me, or the voice that was guiding me back to Namibia. And then I came back, and now it's been a year, and I'm looking back and thinking, wow, it was the best decision I could have made.
Exactly.
So I now have the beauty of retrospect to do that. But again, I think it's one of those situations where God forced me out of an environment because He really felt that I could derive my max potential and optimum abilities here at home, maybe for my own good, but also for my society at large. So yeah, that would be my answer to it. That's why He continues to play such an important role in my life, and why I won't steer away from Christianity and the church. Because if not Him, then what? Then what blueprint, or what guidance do you really have, if that kind of makes sense, right?
Exactly.
And I respect people who've got other avenues, and if it works for them, fair, right? But for me, no, it doesn't work. I actually need him. I can't imagine a life without him.
Yeah. Now, I like that you said that, because I also think that it's really hard. People are sort of looking for blueprints to follow, and it's hard. People get confused because there's really nothing to follow. Usually the right thing to do is the thing that's a bit difficult to do. It's like, I think in the Bible they say the narrow path, because everyone sort of follows the huge wide road, because that's the easiest thing to do. But the narrow path where few people walk in, because it's almost like you're giving up your personal autonomy to someone else,
100%.
And he sort of seems to be the best person to give it to, because I think that he's the one that traced everything for us, and if you just sort of like, it's almost like jumping off a cliff and trusting that he will sort of catch you, and that's, I think it's good for you to have, but obviously people have the choice to choose whatever works for them, but if that works for you, it's a really it's really
and we just have to respect that, right? That people have their unique and independent value systems and belief systems, and
True. If you were to give advice to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them?
Still young, so that's a tough question.
I said younger.
Younger version of myself. I'm not thinking back. I would say continue what you're doing. Continue taking the risk. Continue taking that leap. I remember being so scared when I heard I got the scholarship to move to the States. I was about 16 when the news came. I was like, I've never left Namibia. Now I'm going to get on a plane by myself, go to the US at 16. So if I had listened to that fear and that doubt, I would have never left, and my life would have turned out completely different. So I would say to younger me that continue doing that, continue taking the risk, as scary as it may seem. The highest rewards come from the riskiest of opportunities, right? Don't shy away, because I remember quite a number of people and friends at the time were convincing me otherwise. Were like, no, why would you do that? Doesn't make sense, blah, 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 blah. And had I listened to them, again, like I said, my life would have turned out completely differently. So take the risks, as scary as they may seem. Get out of your comfort zone, as scary as that may seem. Just do it. So that would be my advice. There's no growth within your comfort zone, trust me.
Definitely.
Familiarity yields no fruit.
Nice. I like that. Where could people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Social media, I'm really everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn. A lot of people reach out to me via LinkedIn. Just my name on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, etc. I have got an open door policy at my office, so people can always try their luck. If I'm not occupied and they show up, I'll more than gladly hear them out.
Okay, good. It's fun. It's fun having you.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of golden nuggets from this. And
I hope so.
For sure.
I hope so.
For sure. Okay.
Thank you. Cheers.
For sure.